Ghosts. Fact or fiction? Many people around the world believe in the paranormal, and they say that the spirits of the deceased walk among us unseen. But if we can't see them, how do we know that they exist? Some say that these spirits are able to communicate with us, and that all it takes is one of these. This technique, made popular by the sci-fi network television show Ghosthunters, raises a lot of controversy. I was particularly interested in the Ghost Hunters flashlight experiments inside Louisville's own haunted landmark, Waverly Hills Sanitarium.
So can you try turning on just one of those flashlights for us? Just twist the very top, and that should be enough to turn the flashlight on. Just give it a little twist. There you go. So can you turn on one of the other flashlights for us? All right, thank you.
In order to analyze this claim, I referred to Paul and Elder's Miniature Guide to Critical Thinking. Evidently, the purpose behind the flashlight experiment is to prove that paranormal spirits are present and to communicate with them. The question at hand is whether or not a flashlight, partially unscrewed to allow for easier manipulation, is a valid means of communicating with unseen specters, or whether the flickering of the light is a result of natural, explainable factors. The evidence used is a series of observations and experiments, as well as stories from the Waverly Hills employees. I also got some first-hand experience during an overnight stay on the premises. Take a look at what I and some classmates observed in Waverly's death tunnel.
Stuck in the tunnel? Turn the light off if you are.
Ooh. Why did you turn it on? You scare me. I'm sorry. You can turn it back off if you want to.
So, you can't leave? Turn the light off.
Well, we'll stay with you for a little bit if you want.
Will you turn the light on if you would like us to stay with you?
Good.
My investigation suggests that this particular event was not a rigged setup, and while many critics of the flashlight method chalk it up to TV magic, the clip you just saw was raw footage and was typical of the 8 minutes or so I was filming. However, I'm not convinced that paranormal activity is the best conclusion to draw. We could also logically infer, as many critics do, that the light turning on and off when it did was mere coincidence and was caused by natural factors. True believers in the supernatural hold that spirits have a difficult time interacting with the physical world, and that unscrewing the flashlight makes it easier for them to manipulate it and thus communicate. Others, such as Mike St. Clair of Viper Paranormal, insist that the light fluctuations are due to the basic functions of electric circuitry.
Have you ever been sitting at home watching television with the overhead light on and suddenly the light flickers? This happens all the time, whether you notice it or not, because it happens so fast. Now what's happening is you're not getting enough voltage to that light, and for a split second that light has no power. Well, it's the exact same thing with this flashlight. When this thing is unscrewed, it's teeter-tottering between having a connection and basically you've got a short circuit. So sometimes this light's going to come on and sometimes it's going to be off. You have no control over it. It's natural. It's what happens. There's absolutely nothing paranormal about it.
Of course, your interpretation depends a lot on your assumptions. The assumption that Waverly Hills is haunted is a critically questionable one that the owners work very hard to maintain, beginning each tour with a rather leading presentation. On the other hand, to be truly fair-minded, we should also not assume that just because something can occur randomly, that no paranormal forces were at play. In the sake of intellectual perseverance, I decided to test the open circuit theory in my own home, which, as far as I know, is ghost-free. While some YouTubers' debunking experiments were a success,
And that's it.
I was unable to replicate the light turning on and off as it did at Waverly Hills, no matter what I tried. I tested 3 flashlights, one of them the same brand as in the other experiments, but the most I got in 10 minutes of trying was this dull flicker. If we were to accept the claim that the flashlight technique is valid, it would have drastic implications, from the realms of science and psychology to politics and religion. Basically, it's not something to be taken lightly. In order to address potential bias in my own investigations, I attempted to approach the claim fairly, from the neutral point of view of a curious critical thinker. I went to Waverly Hills with genuinely no idea what would happen, and I tried not to jump to conclusions after what I observed in the death tunnel. Researching the claim after I got home helped me to avoid the egocentric tendency to believe I had experienced something paranormal just because I wanted to, a critical thinking trap to which many other ghost hunters fall victim. As much as I would love to know whether or not I really made contact with one of the ghosts of Waverly Hills, I have to be humble and admit that too many questions remain for me to arrive at a firm conclusion. What other conditions might have caused the flashlight to flare in an open circuit? Or what other factors might have been at play? Why were some people able to replicate the effect at home and I wasn't? I can't rule out paranormal activity from what I observed, but it definitely shouldn't be the first thing you jump to. A more thorough investigation might repeat the experiment at Waverly under more controlled circumstances, with no employees present and more complicated tests for the spirits. With all the unconfirmed theories surrounding Waverly Hills and the flashlight test, it takes some serious critical thinking to arrive at your own personal conclusion. Just be careful not to make the spirits mad.